Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Before we get into the good shit this week, we wanted to remind you that we launched a Patreon. For $1 or $2 an episode, you get extended games, brand new content, access to our notes and murder boards, and much more. So if you'd like to help a bunch of nerdy scientists and John, you can head to patreon.com/frontlinefifth or follow the link in the show notes. Okay, now back to that sweet, sweet Bone Zone action.
Boom!
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Locked Tomb podcast where newly minted lictors explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time, while a couple of dried-out bone wenches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this week we have a quick break between Killing Planets to talk about chapters 12 through 15. I'm Marie, and recently I've been hallucinating the body, regularly. Except it's just Hannah.
Hello.
Hannah, we know that Anthe is terrible at making soup. What is the worst recipe fail that you have committed?
So, as many of you know, I don't cook. My husband cooks.
Quite well.
That's partially because I have to do a lot of cooking in my job as a scientist. So I'm going to tell you about my worst recipe fail in lab. So it turns out I was trying to make a magnesium chloride salt solution. This is like very straightforward. You mix magnesium chloride with water. However, whoever had purchased this magnesium chloride had bought anhydrous magnesium chloride. That means it had never touched water before. And if you don't know this, when you add metal directly to water, you should go look up like sodium in water videos. It explodes quite violently. So I had a moment where I basically experienced the science fair volcano, except actually in my hands and actually unexpected. And it was terrifying. And I had like
kind of an
5 seconds afterwards of like, and then I carefully put it down and went and sat down for like 25 minutes.
Oh my God.
I'm quite obsessive about making solutions now. That's my worst fail.
I'm so sorry. That's traumatizing.
Terrifying.
It was really scary.
I'm always here like every single time because I don't make solutions that often. I'm like, okay, which way? I'm adding this to water. I'm adding water to this.
Oh, I Google it almost every time. I'm like, do you add acid to water or water to acid? I have no idea. I've only been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. I've only done this for 15 years. Like, how would I know?
Which one splashes? I don't know.
Also with us tonight are our little lictors. They're only 11 years old. Ugh. Brooke, John, what shitty soup or other dishes have you attempted?
Oh my God, back when I was 22. I don't know how that math works.
We don't worry about it.
I once tried making these cute little ricotta dumplings. They were supposed to be in a red sauce of sorts, and they were dumplings that were mostly ricotta, and I don't know, there might have been a little egg in it or something. I don't remember what the binder was, but it was a cute-looking recipe. It sounded amazing. I was so interested in these little ricotta fluff dumplings.
Are they not raviolis?
No, there was no pastry around it. It was literally just like the ricotta itself was meant to form a dumpling. There was a binder of sorts, probably egg. I don't recall fully. And maybe I failed at it actually, now that I come to think of it. Either way, I was super stoked. It did not work. They fell apart. It was basically like cottage cheese in a red sauce, and it was disgusting. It's one of the only things I've made that I deemed to be inedible and threw away. I think Rob ate it, actually.
Literally threw out?
I said, I'm not eating this. I pushed it aside. I think Rob ate a serving, and then I said, I'm not keeping this, and trashed it. And I normally will eat almost everything is edible, but that I decided was not.
That's tragic.
I once made the mistake of replacing stock with water in a soup recipe because I didn't have any bouillon cubes or anything else. And let me tell you, that felt like committing a high crime of cooking because that was such a bland soup.
Yeah.
That is the saddest soup.
I ate it and it was not good. So
you really got to have a good soup base in order for that to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I'm imagining with Anthe soup, though, is it's like water.
It's vegetable. It's snow leeks and water.
Yeah, it did not go well. So we fixed it. We now use stock in everything, even things that don't need stock. If it's like anything where it's like add water, no, we're adding stock.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Marie, do you have any of these like cooking failure horror stories?
I think just like the funniest one is that I am in a intercultural marriage, and the joke that I did not know for years and years and years is like one of the easiest meals that my mom would make is chicken soup from scratch, right? Where you take a whole chicken and you dump it in a pot with some salt and a couple of seasonings and an onion, and you put water because you're going to make the stock with the chicken as you're cooking the chicken, right?
Yeah.
And then you take the chicken out after it's cooked and you make noodles and you cook the noodles and you put the chicken back in. And that's chicken noodle soup. And maybe like, I don't know, 10, 12 years into our marriage, my husband explained to me that that was the joke about people who don't know how to cook, is that they just stick a chicken in water, like a whole chicken in water, and start boiling it.
And you were like,
that's extremely rude, because Hainanese chicken rice is one of the best foods on the planet, and it is the same thing.
Because the way that like they would make soup, you would have your chicken like cut up, and then you would make like, you'd blend together like tomato and ginger and garlic and an onion with water, and then you pour that over with just a little bit of water, and you cook the chicken in that first.
Stew it.
Yeah, you stew the chicken like that first, and then you can like add more stock or something afterwards. And so I've taken to making chicken soup that's like now a combination between like my grandmother's like kind of like Mexican chicken soup, which is like the tiny little pasta, and like the tomato based broth and that style. So I'll like stew the chicken that way, but then I'll put
delicious
pasta in like you would for a Mexican soup.
I love a fusion.
This is my favorite episode. Can we do more cooking episodes?
Yes, we should. Anyway, but this week we did read 4 chapters. Of course, we have to assume that John is counting them as only 3 chapters and a side note. But there was a lot to digest. So is there anything in particular you want to draw our attention to first?
I'm just going to take the victory lap.
Yes, you should.
Answer it.
John is calling me.
Put him on speaker.
John, you're on speaker.
Are you guys still recording?
Yes.
You motherfuckers.
Which time?
Which time?
I just got to the part where, I mean, maybe Marie can blur this out, but we stuck a sword into a planet and killed it. We were so right. Oh my god. I nailed something. Anyway, I'm 2 pages into the reading, and I was like, motherfucker. So anyway, I figured this would be good for teen content.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, cool. Have fun, guys.
Bye, John.
Bye.
We absolutely called killing planets to prevent the corruption from spreading, or like whatever the
very
the
early on
are.
last book.
Yes. So, yeah.
My stuff here is like, it's a little, this is like a loose comment, but I think it's interesting. This is a relatively slow book. These are relatively slow chapters in terms of plot, but holy shit, is there a lot of like details dumped in here. And especially on your second read, on your 8th read, you're like pulling on a lot of little strings, unraveling shit. It's very, very fun, these chapters to read. I don't know if it was fun for our newbies necessarily.
No, it definitely was. Okay, John and I went and murder boarded after this because I had the same feeling walking out of it. I was like, oh my god, there was so much here that like either we had already guessed at and we're getting validation for, or got like more information about to like help form our theories. And then we started murder boarding and realized we still had too many holes to really like advance our theories very far. I would say for me overall, what was really weird about these chapters was how much I like found the Emperor to be such a good person, which is something that like John and I have continuously been like, I don't trust him. But like every time like he has like a conversation with somebody, it's like, wow, he's like the first therapist that anybody has ever had in this world. Which is nice.
I think he's a super, super interesting character. Again, I really want him to be played by Common in the Inevitable movie.
Nuanced.
I think that this is just, I read these chapters and I was like, oh, right, nothing happens. And yet, there's so much stuff. So let's go on to the meme watch. There was only one that I caught that apparently nobody else did, but there's 2 other things here. So who put in?
So I put in The Tempest. So anytime you get strange bedfellows, unlikely bedfellows, that's like classic Tempest reference. Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows. And I love that. The idea that misery acquaints, Harrow and Ianthe, who are a pair you would not otherwise put together.
The most awful pair. Okay. I love that. Next you have Eden.
So of course, Blood of Eden references Eden. And there's a little bit there where Joie does say something about a serpent, something. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah, that's King Lear. That's also Shakespeare.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me.
John picked up on that one.
How sharper than a serpent's tooth, et cetera, that's from King Lear.
But this is fun because that's literally a nested allusion.
Oh,
that's
with Eden.
An allusion to Lear, which is alluding to the Genesis story, right? That's fun.
Wait, so to clarify what you just said, the serpent thing, we're talking about Genesis with like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, but then it's also the King Lear quote about talking about some daughter who betrayed him.
Yeah, and ungrateful children.
But even there, how sharper than a serpent's tooth is like considered to be an allusion back to the like ultimate betrayal of the beginning.
Interesting.
I also picked out some SAT words.
Nice. Love.
And I think rather than like me giving you multiple choice, because also I've been writing exams and I'm exam question.
You're tired of writing exams
I'm
for us?
I'm tired of writing exam questions. I'm so sorry. So I just picked out like these words as me being like, what the fuck is this? Let's see if we can make a guess. Apodeme. I'm not going to even give you context.
Yeah.
Apo
Straight
is,
up nothing.
Apo is away.
Away. Mm-hmm.
And D-M-A.
I think that's Greek. I know.
It's reminding me of domain, in like place,
Earth,
kingdom.
place. Yeah, and I thought that like Demetrius.
Nope, I got nothing.
This refers to this is used in context to refer to Harrow's exoskeleton, and an apodeme is what bug exoskeletons use in place of like tendons. So it's like attachment points on exoskeletons to muscle.
Oh, weird.
Didn't know.
That's cool.
There's like little ridges or little rings. So if you think about like when you're eating crab legs or something, and there's like the weird little ridges on the inside, I think that's an apodeme.
That's cool.
Importunate.
Is the root import, or is like as in terms of bringing goods in, or is it
important? It sounds like to make important.
Oh, this says importunate.
There's no CH in there. That is a New Zealand audiobook like level.
No, this is what dictionary.com. Definitions from Oxford Languages. Importunate.
Importunate.
Nope, absolutely nothing.
I don't know.
Persistence, especially to the point of like intrusion or annoyance. Like incredibly annoyingly persistent. And this is Harrow trying to prevent importunate ghosts when she's killing
importunate ghosts.
Yeah, to prevent it from becoming an importunate ghost. Importunate ghost. Okay, spinel.
Isn't that a part on like a sword?
And I thought it was a part on a spinning wheel. I thought it had something to do with weaving.
That's the
I
spinnet.
thought it was a tiny spine. Part of a bug.
Spinnet. See, okay.
Is it the spinnet?
Nothing.
It's the color of...
It's a color?
It's a color. It's actually a mineral.
What?
And it's used to describe the color of Ianthe's gown. And so it's like this kind of dark reddish, like moody, pinky reddy, blackish colors.
Genuine question. Like a brief break here. Do we think Tamsin just lives with like 14 thesauri like around her open to various pages? Or does she just have these words in her brain from the get-go?
She just has these words in her brain because she's a weirdo and she loves words.
Hannah, you'll have an opportunity to meet my father. He is the worst person to play Scrabble with, or really anything, because you're like, that's not a word. He goes, it's a word and it means this, and you're like, God damn it. We looked it up and he's
right.
right.
Damn it.
See, I know a bunch of Scrabble words. No idea what their definition is. I only know that they're Scrabble legal.
Yeah,
because
it doesn't count.
I don't care about the journey.
Doesn't count.
Just about winning.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. And I think this is the one that I think is like the weirdest and also like most like double meaning is a lazarette.
So my mind went to Lazarus, right?
Yeah.
Like reborn somehow.
This is used in context to talk about like this is where they're storing the food that never goes bad. That's been stored for like 10,000 years.
Kind of rebirth if it just never dies.
And so it's used to talk about like a storage, like it can be used to be talking about like a storage place on a ship, but it can also be a historical term referring to like a place where you quarantine plague or leprosy infected people.
Sorry.
Right? I was like, what
I
a
can't
meaning.
control my face. I was like, oh no.
What a double meaning, Tansen. So there we go. That was our SAT. Like they were super weird today. Super weird. These are not SAT words. Nobody's ever going to ask you to use these words in real life.
One would hope not.
Yeah. So with that, dear listener, we'll just ask you to stab your sword into the ground and lean back into a soft C shape as we present Harrow the Ninth, Episode 6. No ghosts, but your own. Act 2. Your hate, your fear, and your serenity.
This section of Frontline 5th is safe for anyone who hasn't read past Chapter 15 in Harrow the Ninth.
Let's recap. Chapter 12. 8 House Skull. 6 months BTEM. You kill a planet, you can never be fast enough, you are not a normal lictor.
Chapter 13. Third House Skull. Ianthe has a complicated power dynamic with her own arm.
Chapter 14, Ninth House Skull. You take tea with God. You confess the ninth house sin. No one needs to know.
Chapter 15, Ninth House Skull. You dream of the body. You are afraid of many things. The body keeps a secret. So, it's been 3 months since Harrow and Ianthe arrived aboard the Mithreaeum, and those 3 months seem to have contained the training montage that Brooke and John really predicted this book would contain.
About time.
We didn't get to see it.
Except we don't really get to see it. We just hear that it's not going well. The newest lictors, the little fingers and gestures of the Undying King, have spent a good part of their time learning how to kill planets so that they won't become fodder for number 7. Because last time we learned that number 7's at the rim.
I have a question for John and Brooke because I am blown away that you guys predicted that killing planets was going to come into play. Oh my god!
Hold on, yeah. I thought this was like vaguely just like a huge stretch. I told him this the other night. I was like, there's so many things that John says, and I'm just like, I don't like. Okay, that's a cool thought. Where do you get it from? And I know. Okay, my problem was I didn't ask where are you getting that from. I just said, oh, okay, wow, like you're very imaginative. I don't really have any evidence. What he has that I do not have is video game lore. John, you want to talk about killing planets with swords?
Sure. So I think it's actually just a coincidence because I'm pretty sure at this point Tamsin no longer plays World of Warcraft. But an expansion that came out very close to when this book came out, the big bad guy tries to kill the planet, like the World of Warcraft, by stabbing a giant sword through it to kill the basically baby Titan soul that lives inside the planet, like the spirit.
The amount of overlap.
The soul of the planet. And basically, the big bad guy who tries to kill the planet was originally one of the good guys protecting the world from corruption, and then saw so much corruption he was driven mad and decided the only way to stop the corruption was to kill all the planets so that they couldn't become corrupted.
Oh
and so
it's nuts. He's been exposed to this plot line before.
Yeah, I started reading this. I was like, I'm just going to see if this is. So it turns out it's just a giant World of Warcraft plotline. And maybe one day for our bonus episode we'll go through all of it. But it's truly just, that was like a shot in the dark, pulled entirely from World of Warcraft. So I can't even take that much credit from it.
No, you should absolutely take the credit. You had the right background knowledge to make the right prediction. But yeah, no, it was not surprising because he's been saying that for so long, and I'm like, sure, whatever that means.
Well, we get to see it, right? We join Harrow and Mercy on a strange, dusty planet, and it's the 13th planet that Harrow needs to kill, or that she's going to kill. Mercy, who is now Harrow's teacher in all things lictor, is continuing her fierce campaign to be the world's biggest asshole. Also
she's a strong contender.
I adore Mercy. Anyway, Harrow stabs the planet with her sword and uses it to send a lance of thanergy into the planet. I think of it as the sword is like the wizard staff. You know, it's the focus for the power.
Yes, agreed. But it's also funny because it's like there's a comment like you never wanted it to be sharp again. Like Harrow's so happy to just stab her sword into random shit.
As it dies, she drops herself into the river to kill its fleeing souls before it can become a revenant.
Killing a soul is kind of a weird concept.
Yeah. Especially because the soul almost has like a physical
manifestation,
being, like a 3-dimensional shape in the river, right? Like it's
choosing details. Well, that might not be choosing details, but it's hairy, gory.
It's like a little mealy bug.
Yes, that's kind of what I see too.
Oh God, really?
Well, because it says it's an isopod.
I don't know if you guys watch Studio Ghibli, but
yes.
Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is this one.
Okay.
And it has these giant like isopod creatures. And that's kind of like almost what I was picturing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the soul does not necessarily conform with the physical shape of the original thing you killed, right? Like it's not like it looks like a ball. It's not like it's a planet.
That's so
shape
weird. Why did I saw
I don't
something
know.
a lot more like horrifying, like gory spider in my head, which could just be my
I like
brain.
that too. Oh
Giving
no,
me something
send some
terrifying.
Shelob in there. I like
It
it.
was gross.
So Mercy waits on the shore to watch, and Harrow, I think at one point she's like, it's getting away! And then Harrow makes harpoons out of her own bones and sinews and spears.
It rides it!
It's so fucking cool.
Soul, and then like gets dragged along and then rides it. And then she builds
like
skeletons that climb onto it.
Half Captain Ahab. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the Dune reference because it definitely is like the gory, shittier version of riding Shai Hulud. Like, yeah.
Yes, that is exactly what it does. And so she uses like her skeletons with their sharpened legs like stakes to like climb into it, and she scrapes away the soul flesh to find its brain, and she stabs a javelin of bone deep down into it and cleaves its brain in half, and Mercy watches it all just from the shore.
God, Harrow's exoskeleton is very cool. I love that we started with a bone corset, and she goes, I don't need somebody else's bones for this. I make my own.
Yes.
As soon as that's done, she like rushes out of the river, and back on the planet, Harrow's body is half dead, essentially succumbing to hypothermia.
Yikes.
And so she rushes to use her lictor necromancy to heal herself, and the body watches. And Mercy tells her that the whole ordeal took 8 minutes, 34 seconds. And despite taking 2 minutes off of her previous time, Mercy tells Harrow it's just not good enough because it will never be good enough, because even if it only took 2 minutes, it wouldn't be good enough, because whenever Harrow is in the river, her necromancy fails in her body. And this is what we learn what it means that Harrow is half a lictor, because it seems like she has access to the lictoral well of power, but she isn't a lictor, because when a normal lictor's soul is in the river, their cavalier keeps the lights on in their body, and the lictor's body with a cavalier's soul can fight, it can heal itself, but that's not the case for Harrow. Her constructs crumble, she can't move, she can't heal, she's completely vulnerable, and so it's only when she comes back to her body that she can consciously do anything to heal it.
What do you guys think about this? Like, is this in line with what you expected from all the half a lictor?
Kinda. And now I'm just convinced that Gideon's in the goddamn sword.
Yeah, no, super convinced of that, right? Yeah, Gideon's been removed.
Yeah, and I think that's what the whole, like, Sun Tung and everything else, everything with the Anthe was to, like, figure out a way to get the soul out of the body, keep it intact, and transfer it to, like, what is basically, like, a lich, right? You have a phylactery, basically, but except it's a sword.
Nice.
So, like, Harrow gets to keep
back to the Lich of the Lictor.
Yeah.
She's
like a good SAT word with the phylactery.
She's not a diet lictor. She's the true lictor. She puts the lich in lictor.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, however, I love that Augustine calls them diet lictors.
Yeah.
That is very funny.
So, to be fair, like, this conspiracy that we have of Gideon's soul has been removed from her and then put into another vessel doesn't have a ton of good evidence. It's all circumstantial. Like, we've never actually seen, like, that there was a time immediately after becoming a lictor before the start of this, in between where the end of Gideon was when we first got introduced to Harrow from her perspective in this book. We never saw her like enter the river and like have a functioning other half. We did see that like Gideon was present and then she faded away.
My counterpoint is that God at the end of Gideon saying that he can't take the soul, it would destroy both. Yep. And Harrow going, fuck that, I'll figure it out, seems very on brand.
Agreed. I think it's all very circumstantial. Yeah, and somehow using Ianthe for this, which is a cool concept considering.
Ianthe loves liminal spaces.
The idea that the cav takes over is cool. It's a little like initially kind of weird to think that even when the cav takes over, they have power over necromancy when they never did before.
But I don't think that it's like the cav takes over, because it even describes it as it's only the cav's
Well, cav keeps the lights on.
The cav,
right,
well,
but it's
the
not like
you
see the cav. Right?
But the house can still produce necromantic energy.
It's like an automaton that can react and do things, but it doesn't seem like that there's a personality in there.
It's like their instinct and their muscle memory, maybe.
But not them.
Yeah, but it is interesting. And it's, and Mercy's such a dick about it, right? She's like, it boils down to you have hypothermia and I don't. Because Harrow is totally vulnerable. Which to me is like not a terribly big problem that you would have to overcome. Like, why not just protect Harrow's body? Like, put her in a protected space. She clearly does really good river magic. She good river.
Good with bones.
I mean, well, so Harrow isn't a normal lictor. She's a diet lictor. But also, Ianthe isn't doing great either. Because when Harrow gets back to the Mithreaeum, Ianthe is sitting in her over-the-top gaudy rooms in her gorgeous clothes that don't fit her because they used to belong to Valency. And she's glumly eating soup that she made. It's vile.
Her words.
Yeah. It's not nearly as good. She's not nearly as good at killing planets as Harrow is. Her best time is 15 minutes, 10 seconds. And again, it doesn't really matter because Harrow isn't going to make it through number 7. Ianthe doesn't even think she'll live to see number 7.
I just think it's funny because when we go back to the prologue, Ianthe has like a giant, like, golden bone arm, right? So like at some point she got sick of having the flesh arm and chopped it off and replaced it with a bone arm.
Well, and you can see that here, like this conversation is happening now because she's basically stopped using her right arm altogether. So after Cytherea chopped it off at Canaan House, someone reattached an arm for her, and Ianthe just can't seem to use it. And Harrow and Augustine both seem to think that the problem is psychological. Augustine says they might as well smother Ianthe along with Harrow. But there's not an obvious fix to this problem because if they chop off the arm, her lictoral healing won't regrow a limb. It'll just heal it as a stump. And Ianthe doesn't think that she can remake it perfectly.
And she says if she doesn't make it perfectly, like if it's not perfect, she won't want to use it.
Yeah, and so it doesn't matter. It has to be perfect. And so she asks Harrow to make her a new arm, seeing as we're comrades in arms, seeing as we're intimates. And if Harrow were anything like Mercy, she would have said, "Ich."
It's also, I mean, the description of the arm itself is pretty horrifying. It's got this like bluish steam where it's really gross.
But it also sounds so much worse than the first time you saw it.
Right.
Yes,
like it's very definitely she is rejecting the arm.
Yeah. And but ultimately, Harrow doesn't like fully say no. It was just sort of a like, yeah, I can't do a good job of that at this point. Like, and I don't know what we're going to see come in the future, but I suspect that golden arm maybe did come from Harrow regrowing it for her for whatever reason. That's my prediction.
We'll have to see. Ianthe is also more than a little pissed off because Harrow is pretty obviously Jod's favorite. Harrow often takes tea with Jod in his form as teacher. She hates the tea and she really hates the biscuits, and she's vaguely offended at watching him dunk biscuits in his tea. But there's this real like father figure thing going on.
I don't know. That tea sounds pretty good.
Yeah. It also is just, it's fundamentally interesting to me. This is God. This is the god of the universe. This is the king undying. This is the emperor across the river, whatever the fuck his other titles are. And he is just a dude in vaguely ragged clothes, dunking his biscuits in his tea and having this conversation with her.
Yeah, he has earthly, homely, human comforts.
Yeah, it's weird even for Harrow, who really desperately needs a friend and a father. I don't know.
The more I read this, the more I'm thinking God is a cult leader. Like that is the vibe I'm getting from this.
And now, so you're going like, full, I can't trust you. You're saying exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah, just like the vibes are just not, like the vibes are off, at least in my mind. I don't know what, but like I'm fully on board, and this will go into a reckless speculation later.
Don't let yourself get hurt.
I mean, I think it's impossible for the first necromancer to not have been a cult leader. Like, I don't know. That just seems like kind of like the natural reaction. Like if Jesus Christ came back, I'm sure
Hey, Marie, would you ever take a disciple as a professor, a teacher?
Would I take a disciple? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it freaks me out all the time how much like students,
to your point, John, like
obviously look up to me in ways where I'm like, I'm such a fucking mess, you guys.
If only you knew. Okay, so John, maybe you're just way too familiar with people with an enormous amount of imposter syndrome.
It's very possible. But also just like, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this in like a way that's not going to offend every major religion.
Do it. I'm here for it.
God, this is going to sound something like an edgy 12-year-old would say, but like every religion kind of starts off just cultish and, a little bit. And so like, I imagine that like if the first necromancer is on Earth, like there's like, and he's starting to gather followers or apostles, like, Jesus was successful. So we don't think it's like a cult, but like, it sounds very cultish the way this whole thing starts off. Like he's got followers helping him in a compound. They just call it the facility, like trying to figure out necromancy in the lictordom process. Like it sounds like, like we're 2 steps away from necromancer Kool-Aid. I don't know. There's something there.
Here's an alternate theory, because we don't really know what happened to start necromancy. When we were murder boarding, we were just like, oh, this is still the gaping hole of like, we don't know how necromancy came to be, and therefore we don't really know, and we don't know how the resurrection like became required, so we can't fully ascribe meaning behind Jod's actions. I have this moment where I was talking to somebody. I was like, God, anybody who thinks that they'd want to be like the president of a country, like the leader of a country, like the amount of ego you must have is just absolutely nuts. Like I can't imagine being so certain in myself and in my ideas that I would say, yes, I think my ideas are the best for these 300 million people, or actually we're way beyond that, whatever.
Brooke, if they would let me run the world, I could fix everything. I fundamentally believe that. My ego is exactly that big.
So this is interesting. I have yet to meet somebody in my circles who actually felt that they had a little bit of that in them. The counter was not that it was ego all necessary. I mean, certainly there's a lot of people with the ego for it that drives it. But there's an alternate option, which is just looking at all the other options and going, somebody's got to step up. Even if I don't necessarily think I have the ideas, I think that the other ideas are more dangerous. So
it has
God
to be
could be one or the other. Is he a cult leader with the ego? Or is he the one who stepped in to take on the burden?
If you look up Baha'i, right, as like newer religions, and you compare and contrast that with things that are cults, I would say that a difference between a cult and a new religion that may have like a little bit more legitimacy is the purpose of it, because the only purpose of a cult is to deify and push the agenda of one singular person. And as soon as that one singular person is gone, there is no more movement. There is no more purpose. Because the only purpose and the only reason to drive that, like, yes, they may have used people's intentions and emotions and all of these good things to bring people into what they wanted, but the only purpose of the cult was to
deify
or to make things great for one specific subset of the population of that particular cult. And then the cult can continue as long as there are people at that level who continue that. So it's like, what is the difference between Scientology versus something like Baha'i, where one of them is community-based and meant to not necessarily uplift and upraise
one person or one tier,
but is rather
rules of society,
like what, you know, people really want out of a religion, which is how do I live my life
around others
and live it well. Yeah. The other thing, the last thing I say on this is, you know, Brooke is making this counterpoint between somebody who like steps in to fill shoes that need to be filled and somebody who's like doing it for their own reasons and actively manipulating. And I think there's probably a lot of people who cross the line and do both.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of people who think that they are acting in everyone's best interest. And if you look at it from the outside, it's not the case.
The greater good.
Yeah,
Terrifying.
I think it's genuinely complicated, and I think that Jod is genuinely complicated, and the way that he interacts with Harrow is genuinely complicated. I think he has love for her, but I don't agree with his parenting style.
Yeah, let's say that. Well, so one day in these conversations, right, like Harrow finds Jod looking at these old reports because he's still upset about the 18,000 that died in those missile strikes. And he says that BOE, or Blood of Eden, did it because they are a cult dedicated to destroying the 9 houses and the Emperor.
God, it's so hard to like exactly know what's important here.
Okay, well, Hannah has a list of things. The details that we get are the Emperor and his lictors stumbled on them about 5,000 years ago, but all of this time BOE was looking for them.
The lictors and God.
Yes, and the 9 houses. They upped their game about 25 years ago when they got a really charismatic demagogue as a leader.
Wait, no. It was 25 years before Harrow was born. I made that mistake.
Thank you.
Because I was trying to figure out timelines here with what they were talking about with something happening around the time of Harrow's birth. But these are separate. So 25 plus 17, that puts us around, what's my math? 40-some years ago? 42?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what it says? 25 years before you were born?
Yep.
Or 25 years ago?
It says they upped their game about 25 years before you were born. You nailed the sentence.
They present themselves as kind of like this organic grassroots thing, but the Emperor thinks that they have a secret central organization. The Emperor thinks that they were behind Mithreaeum's move at Canaan House.
Isn't that interesting?
They obviously have old nukes in storage because that's how they killed the 18,000 recently. And they hate necromancers and they hate necromancy. And that's what we know.
And do we think that then this is what... there was some allusions made to like Ortis the First being stationed, assigned somewhere.
They talk about him having a mission.
Yeah. And it was within like the past 20 to 50 years or so. My new conspiracy is that he was like acting almost as an agent.
Like a double agent?
I don't know. I love it. I love the idea that he's a double agent. Maybe he even like got to talk to Mithreaeum. Maybe there's like something interesting going on there. Because again, remember 20 years ago, there was somebody that crash landed on Pluto with a baby saying, Gideon! Which we think is Ortis the First.
There's so much interesting stuff in these little bits. So the fact that they were looking for, they like stumble upon them 5,000 years ago, right? So generally the timeline seems to be that like they release the resurrection beasts into space. It takes a long time for the resurrection beast to become resurrection beast.
It's time to build up the anger. Years
of wandering around space to go like become a true resurrection beast. Blood of Eden comes out, I guess, after the resurrection, but new theory is that the Blood of Eden was founded by the people who were outside of the solar system. Like humanity obviously is spacefaring. So my guess is that it's the non-resurrection humanity that's originally from like our solar system.
You think there's non-resurrection humanity?
Well, yeah, because it sounds like we only resurrected like inside the solar system, and then we're conquering planets throughout. Like we're subjugating people outside of the solar system. I didn't get the sense we were
that advanced of a society. Well, interesting. Maybe. Interesting. John and I are still very confused.
Fair enough. Me too.
The only reason for that is that they also have nuclear weapons, which are like very old weapons. So I'm assuming like it might have been like people that were at least around for the original like pre-resurrection humanity because they still have nukes.
I actually have a question about that as well. They have old nukes in storage. We don't know how old, but I also too, my automatic thing was like, oh, maybe they're from pre-resurrection. Do nuclear weapons go bad? Like, what's the sell-by date on your average,
uranium
IBM?
Has a half-life.
What is that?
Yeah, they have a half-life, so they have to.
Just a thought. 10,000 years is a long time to
I think you're right.
Half-life of uranium is 4.5 billion years, so it sounds like they're
I
Oh
think
my
it's gonna
God,
be okay.
are you kidding?
We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Those bombs are going to be okay.
So like
Yeah,
you
that's
lose a
why
little bit. but,
nuclear
like,
waste is a
outrageous.
problem.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Um,
4.5
Makes sense.
billion years? Is that an estimate?
Well, no, I'm sure we can do the math, right? I'm sure somebody figures. People with PhDs like yourself figure that out.
Not like me.
Wrong PhD.
But they also like hate necromancers and necromancy. So like, my guess is like the origin story is like they are like the resistance that would come out of everyone dying. Like 10 100,000 billion ghosts or whatever the frick it is. Like that would seem to be a natural reaction to the emperor. What we think is killing the planet and everything else to resurrect everything. Anyway, that's part of our conspiracy. We'll get into it. But
to me, it's more of just anti-necromancy movement of like a group of people who maybe felt. I mean, the more simple idea, I think, is that there's some people who felt inferior because they weren't like necromancers. They built a group out of the system. Because, yeah, the other option is, I think, just very simply that there's just people who are not a fan of the religion and not a fan of necromancers, maybe because they weren't necromancers themselves and formed their own society externally. And that, devolved into a larger movement over thousands of years.
With all of that, Harrow asks him who is Eden, and Jod says, someone they left to die. Once you turn your back on something, you have no more right to act as though you own it. And then Jod, teacher, asks Harrow about her family. He knows that her mother and her father are dead. How?
Big secret.
He asks about Harrow's birth, and she tells him the horror of her birth story. She tells him the genocide her parents committed, murdering all the children of their own house to produce her. And he's just flabbergasted by this. And I think at first she takes this as judgment. And he says it would have been like using a nuclear detonation to power a sewing machine. And that her parents committed a type of resurrection, modifying an embryo with thanergy.
I love Jod's analogies personally. Sorry. Giving him credit.
That's a very good analogy.
Yeah. He says that Harrow is a walking miracle, a unique theorem, a natural wonder. And he tries to comfort her. He touches her shoulder and he tells her that he will shepherd those dead souls. He will take on their burden to mourn and cherish. And he will take on the ninth house sin as his sin.
Very godly.
There's an interesting thing here, though, and this like speaks to how I feel about Jod, which is he's imperfect in many, many ways. When he starts this conversation, he's actually kind of just focused on how they did it and how impressive it was. She's a walking miracle, a unique theorem. And Harrow has to kind of remind him, I'm talking about the genocide my parents committed. And then he pivots to kind of like, oh yes, of course, like, and caring for her, I will take that sin on. So he is caring for her, he is comforting her, and he's taking her very seriously. And at the same time, I think there's this part of him that like, and maybe it's a 10,000-year-old thing, you just see any death as kind of like an ant.
Inevitable.
Like it's just a thing that happens. Like
Harrow takes this pity and she begs him, don't tell anybody. And he says, he gets angry and he says, nobody has to know. Nobody has the right to know. Nobody has the right to blame you. Nobody can judge.
Oh, do you think that's like projection?
Until this moment, I hadn't. Because I really appreciate it on Harrow's behalf where, like.
Even on first read, I was like, what are you not wanting people to judge you about?
I think the anger behind it is a little...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Inappropriate.
Yeah, the him
just
getting
pure...
angry about it. You're like, what? This is a shift? Okay.
This is so funny because I get very angry on other people's behalf regularly. I don't almost never get angry on my behalf, but I get really fucking pissed off when I feel like other people are being targeted.
Explains a lot about you. Yeah. But no, I think I don't think that's normal. I think most of the time that it's the other way around.
Respect. Thank you.
And then at night, Harrow dreams of the body. They kneel together at her childhood bed in Drearbur, praying, and Harrow tells the body of her fears. She's afraid to die. She's afraid of going mad. She's afraid of herself. She's afraid of Mithreaeum I. She's afraid of God. And Harrow asks what her own eyes were like. And the body says, she asked me not to tell you. And Harrow wakes up screaming, and her eyes, just like Ortis's eyes, are that same deep, fathomless black.
Dude.
Well, tonight I'm afraid to... What?
You choose your own adventure.
Yeah, you get to choose what you want to say there, Marie.
Oh. I don't know what I'm afraid of. Tonight I'm afraid of having to go write all those damn exam questions. But I guess it's time for a game! Woo! Interstitial. Not cocked at all. So it's clear that we are all deeply invested in ambiance in general, and although the Mithreaeum with all its intricately arranged dead people parts has been the focus so far, I think we really need to spend some energy on Ianthe's quarters. That's why this week we are playing Paint Me Like One of Your Third House Girls.
I love the description of Ianthe's quarters, which just reads as like Versailles light.
Yes. I thought it was funnier before we had Trump in the White House and I saw what he did to the Oval Office. And now it's just slightly depressing. But anyway, in this game, we will each describe a few of the incredible life-size portraits in Ianthe's rooms. So,
obviously, these are all going to be nudes then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, obviously. They're all nudes.
They all have to be life-size.
Nudes, life-size. I immediately just think of like the scene at like the end of, I don't remember which Austin Powers movie.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Nobody knows what I'm talking about.
I wish.
There's a scene where basically like they're holding like melons and stuff and
anyway. Yes. Okay, so for me, when I started reading the descriptions of the portraits, I'm just seeing this like clearly neoclassical style of painting. So this is a lot of like, you know, like rather realistic paintings of people in like Greek clothing of some sort, except instead of Greek clothing, we've got this like rippling muscle body, but it's like covered in like bone chains. It's like body jewelry, except it's all made of bone chains.
Interesting. Love.
Okay.
That's fabulous.
Lounging. Bone chains. It's very Bacchus style. Feed me grapes, except we don't have grapes because this is space.
See, I was picturing it more as like Botero. Are you guys familiar with him? My mom loves his paintings.
I think so.
No.
He paints a lot of
oh, never mind.
A lot of naked people. Like
it's a little bit oversimplified, very round.
Wait, how do you spell it?
Botero. Botero.
Everything is very round shapes.
Yeah, there's several of these hanging in my parents' house.
Tiny
like
faces.
Prints, obviously. Prints have to,
God, this is so funny.
I was kind of picturing these, and then I just pictured like the objects that are covering them up are just various bones that like one skeletal construct in the Mithraeums, like his job is to change it out depending on how they're feeling that day. So like, you know, if you're feeling particularly like, I guess full of life, like the piece of femur that's covering up the man. And then like if it's a bad day or it's cold outside, maybe it's a, scapula or like a collarbone.
What about
or
femur says joie de vivre?
No, it's the size of the bone. It's a
size.
Yeah.
Size of the bone. Size of the bone.
I didn't get that at all.
Once again, John, you and I are the only ones on the same wavelength.
No, see, this was actually, sorry. So Marie, I'm going before you because this was also mine. I was thinking very realistic, full-size life scale portraits, but I thought it would be really funny if the appropriate things were covered up by things that could represent the things they're covering. So what I had also was a femur just covering the penis, nothing else, like very, very deliberately there. And initially I thought it would be really funny to have one of Valency with her legs open, but there's like a clamshell right in front of her.
Absolutely not. That is the wrong way of doing the birth of Venus.
Oh, God.
Yeah, see, I very definitely am imagining Cyrus, like again, like neoclassical style, but like in one of those where he's got a helmet on, he's got a sword, that's all. But it's like one of those like where like he's like standing, but like the knee is up, and like the way that his hand is resting with the sword is just very
Yes, just barely covering. I like it.
Just barely
it's hard
covering,
to do with a rapier.
right?
That says,
and then
that tells you right
Valency-
away about the anatomy.
Right. And then Valency in that one is like, you know, kind of like stepping out of like a pond or something, right? So her back's to you, so you don't actually have to cover up anything, right? Because we're going by PG-13, you can see the bare ass rules. Yep. Yeah.
Is that PG-13 rules? Ass is allowed?
I think so.
Yep.
Ass is in.
You get ass and you get one non-sexual F word in a PG-13 movie.
What?
There you go.
PG-13.
Yeah, you get one non-sexual F word.
Really?
And if it's sexual, it has to go up to R.
Okay, interesting. For my second portrait, I'm stuck in the neoclassical style. But in this case, you know, it's always the melons. It's always some fruit object, right?
Yes.
But we don't have that. So what we have is a field of snow leeks, and we have a woman just sprawled out in the field of snow leeks.
Love.
It's very Instagram worthy, but it's snow leeks.
Do we get nipples or no?
Hair. It's all about the hair. Mermaid hairstyle.
Got it. Covers all the appropriate. I like it.
Yeah, I'm going with like a Dali version of everything, where it's just like melting nudes. Like everything is like it's all like stylish. Like there should be a nude, but all the breasts have just like sunk off the like bottom of the painting, so you can't see the nipples, and then like there's clearly a shaft, but the shaft gets cut off, so it's really just like a single fleshy piece, and you can't see anything that would identify it as a penis, so it's like perfectly fine.
Oh my god.
Obsessed.
No.
Oh my god.
No. See, mine are ones that I would actually be fine with having around. Like your versions are horrifying, John. I am not on the same wavelength
I
with you
think
on
this is amazing that he's just gone in an entirely different direction than you and me. Marie, we're like neoclassical. It's gonna be beautiful bodies.
Well, so my second one was I want the you know Obama's like official portrait with like all of the greenery, the ivy behind him.
Yeah.
I want like a version with that much greenery, kind of in that like more modern style, where it's very much not like their bodies are hidden, but it's just like the greenery is just enough.
I've just got immediate like Simpsons just backing into the hedge vibe when you said
kind of, but like sexy.
Not Homer.
And I, once again, went with bad wordplay. I think it would be very funny if Valency is bending over to pick up a cat whose, like, dangling legs are covering just that particular part. That's very funny to me. And the only equivalent I could come up with Cyrus was a snake, but I don't know how.
A rooster.
Actually, that's even better. This is, like, Cyrus with a rooster. Thank you, John. That's perfect.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have decorating to do in our recording studio. So what portrait are we commissioning for ourselves? It doesn't have to be naked this time. I absolutely know what portrait I want actually in my lab, where I want like a self-insert, which I've already introduced you to this, like the magic circle.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, but Waterhouse also has one where it's like Circe. It's called Circe something, where it's like a woman, like she's like standing and she's like pouring, like from like a wide bowl, water into. I think it's like her doing something evil to a nymph that pissed her off. I think it's actually like from like a mythology or something. But I'm like, I think that there's a way that I could do like a self-insert. Yeah, I think I could do a self-insert of that kind of a thing, but like lab style sort of, you know? So I could be like, you know, like pouring like auger or something.
Oh my god, there's just a petri dish underneath you.
You've got a little bit of like fuck around and find out energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also want to do a self-insert, although maybe it's more just my version of it. One of my favorite portraits of all time. I am a massive fan of the Impressionism period. And I think it's Renoir has Luncheon of the Boating Party, which is just like a whole bunch of like friends who are out on a boat together having a party. And absolutely, that's the picture I want of like me and my friends out on our Duffy boat, champagne and cheese boards. Hell yeah.
Amazing.
I don't really have anything. I mean, I think I would love, like, again, I have a very specific taste. I like Dolly, but like also like the self-inserts are giving me like Italian Renaissance vibes, where it's just like the rich families would commission a work, but like only if you put their face and their entire family like in the background somewhere. It'd be like, oh, the birth of Jesus, but somehow like, Giovanni, whatever the hell, is like him and his whole family is like in the manger for some reason.
Just throwing up the like peace sign in the back.
or like they're the only ones staring, like everyone's like looking at baby Jesus except for like Giovanni's like staring directly at like your perspective, like, I'm in this painting.
Oh my God. Breaking the fourth wall of your
I love that.
Birth of Jesus painting.
I also really love the Impressionists, but I wouldn't want an Impressionist painting of me. I tend to like the landscapes, things like that. I feel like I don't know, I'm stuck on bones right now, and I actually think it would be really cool to have a portrait painted of you, like you pose for it, but it's just painting what the bones are like underneath. Does that make sense? Like,
you want an X-ray?
Yeah. Yes, the four of us get together and pose, then an X-ray is taken, and maybe in fact just the X-ray is the painting that I now hang in my recording studio.
That's incredible. I respect that.
Yeah, that fits with the ambiance, but now that we've got that laid out, let's go to the whole point, the key of our ambiance, which is the giant wall-sized murder board. So it's time for rampant speculation.
Woo!
Act 3. Tonight, I'm afraid to die. So Brooke and John may be children, but their conspiracy theories are as good as any 10,000-year-old lictor. So Brooke and John, what the fuck is happening?
We've kind of talked a little bit about this already, what we think is happening, or the places where we're still missing large pieces of information that would help us piece it together. But big kudos to John this week for particularly nailing the death of the planets. And you have a theory around this as well. Would you like to share about how the death of killing planets is important?
Basically a war of attrition to starve out the resurrection beasts. It seems like they get nastier or bigger from eating other planets, basically.
Yeah, I think they said something about like
or consuming their soul.
Are like consuming planets as they go to like fuel themselves or something.
Are they lictoring planets? Are resurrection beasts just like the amalgam of 100 different planets put together? I don't know. That just came to mind. Might be completely worthless.
Resurrection beast is, we talk about, let's see, it's the revenant of killing a planet. So it's a soul that's been forcibly removed and has basically become metaphysical of sorts.
Yes.
And they talk about them as being kind of weak at the beginning. And as time goes on, they can consume other planets. I think we imagined it vampire style. I don't remember if that was specifically what they talked about, of like consuming other planets kind of fuels them.
Yep. Then they become nastier and they're like just like 1,000 years of pain and anguish and eating other planets. Like they become these giant, metaphysical representations.
Yeah, so John's idea is that partly we're going and killing them in order to prevent the planets. Actually, I think that's maybe what it says directly, is that does it say that they're keeping they're killing planets so that the other resurrection beasts can't consume them in their wake or something?
I feel like there's a line that says one less for number 7 to eat on the way in.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that's where it is. So that's a thought. I think there's also something interesting around this resurrection beast idea of like how did they estimate the amount of how far away this resurrection beast was so completely. They thought it was 5 years away, which like they have pretty good estimates of the time for space travel. Like it seems like the resurrection beast maybe can't travel through the river in the same way that the others can. Otherwise they'd be moving around in like 5 minutes also. So there's some like weird like manipulations of time between the resurrection beast and the lictors that are kind of confusing. And I don't know if that's related to the way it can like consume planets and maybe develop extra powers or something. We've talked about the origin of BOE a little bit and how we don't exactly know what's going on there. We talked about Ianthe's golden arm.
Which is made of bones, which now we think means Harrow probably made it.
Wait, we know it's made of bone? Gold
right,
bone?
It's gold bone, right?
Oh, I just thought it was a golden arm.
Did they not say it's bone at some point?
Check.
Hannah, Marie?
I know the answer. I don't know off the top of my head what was in the chapter.
Let me look. This was in the prologue, right? Prologue, Ianthe shows She is told, okay, in the darkness her rapier was black and the bones of her right arm gleamed in oily gold. Okay, you're right. Okay, so it's
although maybe
I think
it sounds like it's turning blue. Maybe she just lets it, like, the flesh rot off.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Oh.
I wonder if that means she uses it or not. Anyway.
Yeah.
Gross. Mercy. Okay, what else have we seen here? Harrow is told that she's special by the Emperor. She's a unique theorem. And I just think it's interesting that, we view her as Diet Lictor. I guess the question is exactly how is she so special? Is it just like, her capacity for necromancy as even just a normal human? Like, how does that translate into being a lictor or a half a lictor? Does this mean that she had like some special ability to remove Gideon's soul that like the Emperor wouldn't have thought was possible?
Yeah, that's interesting. The other thing, and this was brought up from Hannah saying like how quick his tone shifts when Harrow's like, it's a genocide as opposed to like a unique theorem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, does kind of feed into the theory that like God took the best of like necromantic knowledge from everybody and used it to become God, right? Like he seemed very interested in like the like knowledge side of it before like the person side of it. I don't know. Like that just, again, seems like very like sociopathic / culty in to be more interested in like how they did it and like the novel knowledge as opposed to like, oh, we had to kill 200 babies to do this.
Interesting. I have some other side things, which is I just like to point out that the depth of Harrow's plans that she went through to hide Gideon from herself, from her current self, like her new self, is amazing. The fact that she's like, the body basically has instructions. There are all these instructions. I am like dying to know what happens immediately after the prologue, where she's like bleeding out and she's thinking about the letter that she should have opened about what to do upon your imminent death. Like, what do you think that letter says inside of the imminent death letter?
I don't know.
I feel like it's got to be like okay, finally we'll undo this whole thing.
Yeah. Or it's like, yeah, this is how you get Gideon's soul out of the sword to become a full lictor again.
Or
something
transfers like Gideon's soul, do a complete swapperoo or something. Your soul dies, Gideon's can take over the body. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. And then where the hell's Ortis the First?
Yeah, like where has he been the whole time?
For these 4 chapters, he didn't make an appearance. She just like passed out after hearing his name, and then that's it.
Yep. Probably prepping to fight the beast, hopefully. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're still trying to hammer out like the timeline, right? Like I think you and I spent a good amount on the murder board of it's like trying to figure out like the origin timeline, which we just have so many holes to fill, or a theory about like why God had to do the resurrection, right? Like we covered that a little bit.
Confusing.
Yeah. So that'll probably be for next week if we get more details on that. But I guess the two things I now think is that Blood of Eden is probably, I'm going to guess, started by the humanity that was outside of the
humans were spacefaring before the resurrection.
Yeah. And like the ones that were basically like left to die. When he says like we turned their back, it was like no stopped supplies coming from Earth. We stopped doing anything. We just left them to like live in a spooky solar system where death had got like, again, I'm still on like the Pandora's box. Like we opened Pandora's box necromancy thing. We basically like abandoned humanity to like a space where there are basically ghosts going around eating planets, right? So I'm assuming like kind of the natural reaction to being left to die and like maybe like your planet gets eaten by a giant spectral ghost is probably a good reason to start a resistance along with like the conquering and killing of planets. So like general theory is that it's like people outside. And then the second one that I have, which is like deep conspiracy, is that I'm still on Gideon is a direct descendant of the God Emperor, but I think the Blood of Eden leader that they got before is the first iteration of whatever process they did to try to make a kid from the Emperor.
Yeah.
So it's like also like
that's related to that serpent's tooth phrase, right?
Yes, from King Lidus, where it's King like Lear. King Lear, a thankless child or whatever it is. Current theory.
I think there's some meat on that theory.
Is that the God Emperor is trying to like replicate himself or like create more it's like whatever the purpose for God replicating himself.
Because the eggs you gave me all died. We spent so much time talking about that this past week. We think that's like literal eggs.
Yes, we think that. Yeah, we think that whole note is Oh my god, I forgot about
human
that
eggs.
entirely. Yeah, we think the whole thing is human eggs, and they're implanting a fertilized egg into somebody, and that's how we got Gideon. And now I'm thinking that like the original version of whatever they did that was the person that's now leading Blood of Eden.
Or the start
against God.
The start. Yeah.
Anyway.
Not sure exactly how that's all connecting, but some good ideas.
Yep.
How's that?
And we still think Ortis the First is Gideon the First. But like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all we got.
Well, I guess we'll see if any of that pans out next time when John and Brooke start taking notes on their elder siblings, which I guess is us, in Harrow the Ninth, chapters 16, 17, and 18.
And if you, dear listener, are like Brooke and me, reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok. And you can buy our gorgeous merch at our Redbubble store, all of which are linked in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And if you don't like it, feel free to lie. Now head off to sleep, my baby necros. Mommy and Daddy have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
Act 4. Someone they left to die.
Warning. This portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and like 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. If that is not what you want, turn back now. You did not tell me this insane theory. Okay, can't wait. So what order should we go in? Because, so you have some things here. My notes say things we learned, foreshadowing, and then my theory crafting.
Excellent. I did not organize these this week at all. So whatever you want to do, go wild.
Well, okay, maybe I think my notes are short and they aren't necessarily super conversational. So maybe I'll just go through them. And then when we get to theory crafting, yours goes into theory crafting.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's start out with the things that we learn in this chapter are the other purpose of the calf's soul.
Right.
What BOE is / what it means.
Mm-hmm.
We learn that Cassie was incredibly powerful because Harrow was the only other necromancer other than Cassie who first time in the river did necromancy and could stay awake.
Yup.
BOE has been infiltrating the houses for a while. And that resurrection might cost extra lives or extra bodies because of the conversation that Jod has.
Yeah.
The foreshadowing that I saw in this chapter that I think is hilarious is I love all of, like, this is where we start talking about soup. And then from here on out, every meal is soup.
Dear listener, Marie texted me this week and was like, can you make the first question about soup? And I was like, yes, I can.
Like, it's such a good in joke. It's so good.
Fucking funny.
There's these mentions of Wake essentially making BOE more bold. I think that that's really fascinating foreshadowing.
Yeah.
There's also other foreshadowing that's just ridiculous. So there's a mention about Harrow needing another haircut already.
I forget about this every time I read this book. It's just such a funny little stupid addition. Oh my God. Sorry. Hold on. Oh, now I'm going to embarrass myself. A listener had a really fucking funny theory about this. So, dear listener, I'm sorry because I can't remember which one you are, but I swear we will put this in the show notes. A listener had a theory that I thought was like, I died. That potentially Ianthe has done this to more than one person, that this is like a running joke she always does, and that this is like why Corona's hair is so much Corona's hair and why Bab's hair is so much Bab's hair, that Ianthe is always like fucking with people's follicles. I just died.
That is funny. That is so funny. It's also funny because
it was
comes
Emily.
Up again.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think it comes up again later in Nona where Pyrrha basically says, can't you like do something about like the beard follicles so I don't have to shave?
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we should. And then I fear that I have to give all of the quotes where Gideon pops up in these chapters. where it's like, this is Gideon. Okay. So there's one where it's talking about in chapter 12, it's talking about Harrow riding the beast. And it says, this might have been cool if it wasn't faintly ridiculous.
There's actually another one in chapter 12 too, specifically where it's clearly Gideon saying it's like you never wanted that sword to hold an edge ever again.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't do that one. The great sword you carried, not the rapier that hung on your hip, blobby blobby. I never needed the dramatics. Right. You drove the point of the bone-sheathed blade into the talc. Obviously, you never wanted it to have an edge of any kind ever again.
With the hand on the pommel. The pommel, goddammit.
Okay, and then let's see. In chapter 13, it says, despite the fact that you had said not being cocked at all.
Sorry.
And then it like goes on with it. And then it's Harrow thinking about Ianthe and how Ianthe is it says that as a necromancer, she was a genius, though you thought she relied too much on shortcuts and circumventions. She was also obsessed with what might lie beneath the river and, though this was a touch hypocritical coming from you, but never mind, a fucking crank.
That is absolutely amazing. Harrow, you're insane.
In chapter 14, it says, you so rarely ate for pleasure that it was beyond imagining that you would become a normal human being who learned how to make a sandwich. Let's see. And then the last one in chapter 15 was when she wakes up and it says, when you stared at your bloodshot eyes in the mirror and tried to remember Ortis Nigonads, you couldn't recall a difference. They were both that deep and fathomless black, the color Ianthe called black roses, because Ianthe was overfamiliar and frankly a pervert.
Oh, I love it so much. It's delightful when Gideon leaks through. And it also is, so it's interesting. The more that I actually pay attention to the narration, the more I'm realizing that it's not just Gideon narrating, that there are aspects of it that really are very much Harrow, because you are getting some of this like mixing thing going on, right? So like even one of those that you mentioned there where Harrow thinks that Ianthe relies too much on shortcuts is the kind of thing that Harrow would think and Gideon wouldn't necessarily think.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it's like Harrow thinking, and I think that she's a crank or whatever, but it's like Gideon narrating what Harrow is thinking.
Yes.
So it's so funny. It's so funny.
Delightful. There's a lot of layers here. That's good shit.
So, yeah. So here we go into the theory crafting.
Okay.
So you have some timeline stuff that I think will go into this.
Perfect.
And some things about like what is going on with Wake and BOE. And so my theory is that based on especially the conversations and what's happening in these chapters, I think that Joie desperately wants to control memories and control the narrative. And that is his entire purpose for this entire series of books. Like that is what he is doing. And
doesn't this speak to like what you were saying earlier about the difference between a new faith that really is clearly a faith and a cult, where like Joie is very much about the PR mechanism of his cult, like and being able to control the story.
Who is going to be in
not
power.
A religion. It is very much a cult. Go on.
Yeah. So my theory, and this is very much colored by Reddit and that kind of stuff, but my theory is that something weird happened with the FTL and the ships that left. And so they've been popping out in different places at different times. So some of them popped out pretty early, and some of them have been, quote unquote, spinning wheelies in the time well for 10,000 years. And
I like this a lot.
What he is searching for is the information on how you would finally figure out, or basically, because they talk about how in Nona, they talk about how the way that you would fix this is you would basically have something as a tugboat that would help, that would go ahead and then help the last ships come out. So I think what happened is that some of, like, in all of the weirdness of the launching and the nuclear war that he starts and him trying to catch the ships and missing, is that the tugboats go out and pop out and become the not 9 houses planets. And so that's why there are non-resurrection people around. But the actual, like, trillionaire's ship can't get out of the time loop because the information is the message. Like, the message is
the message
how
is
they are
the
going to get out of
information
the
on
time
how
loop.
to rescue these people from this whatever kind of like in between, out of time, out of dimension space that they're in.
And so
I
that's
love
who
that.
he's searching for with BOE. It's both that he needs to squash them because he needs to control the narrative, and it's also he needs to find the trillionaires because they are the last people who know actually what happened and what
They're
he
the people
did.
who actually experienced it. This is interesting too. So this kind of goes to one of the things that I wrote down here in timeline stuff that I wanted to address was that Blood of Eden came to their attention 5,000 years ago, but they were already looking for the Emperor. So there's a 5,000-year gap.
Source Graham came
unless
to them 6,000
years ago to tell them about it, 100%. But it does make you wonder how long these other planets have been populated. And I kind of like the idea that potentially that we don't actually know when the first groups of people popped out of this like time warp.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think that it was that long. I don't think it was more than like 1,000 years after.
Okay. Yeah. But that's still like an incredible amount of time in terms of, you know, our era. It's just not a lot of time in terms of Jod and the Lictors. But I do think I like this idea a lot. And I like this better than there being only like one FTL ship that he's looking for. And all the people on the other planets are like house rejects or house migrants, because there really seem to be a lot of people on other planets. But if there's been thousands of years of people building societies on these other planets because they came out of light space, out of whatever faster than light travel. Yes, love it. I think this is really, really fascinating. And I love the timeline here that you're describing. Sourcegram, they figure it out. And this idea that the message contains this fundamental information. For sure, Jod does not want people to judge him for what happened. Like, as soon as Brooke said that today, because I really have, I read myself into characters too much. I was like, he's angry on Harrow's behalf, but for sure he is just angry because no one can blame me. No one should judge me because I destroyed the world.
All of this is colored too, where I spent last week listening to the John chapters in Harrow.
Yeah.
Without listening to anything in between. Like, listening to those is just a complete
the John
narrative.
chapters in Nona, where you're
in Nona,
just like,
yeah, sorry, not in
that's
Harrow,
brilliant,
Nona.
actually, to just go through and actually understand what the narrative is really directly.
Yeah, if you listen
in
to
this
that as
pre-world.
one through line narrative, it's very clear. Like, it makes it even more clear than when they're interspersed, you're kind of like, oh, this is weird. And when you've read it a few times, you're like, yeah, he's not a good guy. And when you read it all just in one narrative, you're like, this is some fucked up shit.
Yeah. And I think he's such an interesting character because he's not a good guy, but I don't think he's like fundamentally evil. I just feel like he's fundamentally a dick. He's fundamentally a white man who's super self-involved, and he thinks he's doing things for the benefit of everyone. Or maybe he doesn't even really think that, but he wants people to believe that. He wants to believe it about himself. And I think he does.
I don't think that's the thing is like, I think that I always found that like a really interesting conversation like on the Reddit threads of like he reads as such a privileged white dude, but there's another color on top of this, which is he isn't probably.
He's part Maori, at least.
Yeah, he's Maori. And there's a history there of as well of him maybe feeling like the world is against him, right? Because
feeling
you
excluded
did have to
and
go
looked down
through.
upon, and that you have to push back always.
Yeah. And so, but being too far into that maybe means that you don't see the whole picture.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's really complicated. And I think he does genuinely he does his version of love for other people, but only when it doesn't get in the way of his aspirations, right? Like, I think he does have some father figure love for Harrow, but the second Harrow crossed him, he would fucking burn her in a heartbeat.
Well, and it's also, you have to remember at the same time that he's having these conversations with her, he has Giddy One trained on her.
Trying to kill her.
Murder
to kill her. Over and over. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, it's like for her own good, right? Because he's trying to shock her into becoming a fully merged lictor. And like they have an argument about how Giddy One's doing this. But it's also like, I think that on the Mithreaeum, it was Jod who tried to murder her.
Oh, sorry, not on the Mithreaeum, on Erebos.
On the Erebos.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, we agree on that. So I think that's really like a weird situation. I think that it's also not the fucking best method, y'all. You try a couple times and she doesn't pop into lictorhood, then why are you still trying? That's just you being an asshole. I think it's a bad method from the beginning. But as I said, Harrow is objectively one of the greatest necromancers of all time. She gets compared to fucking Cassiopeia, okay? Like, she is a brilliant, brilliant necromancer, and the better way to use a resource like that would be to protect her fucking body and let her do her thing in the river. But instead, they're just being weird about what they think a lictor ought to be. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is kind of like pisses me off, as it probably should. This actually kind of goes to one thing that John, I think, said that I think was interesting, which was like how much necromancy is Jod keeping back for himself. And this was kind of interesting to me because we know one of the big fucking reveals of this book is that he's at the very least kept back that there was a version of lictorhood that did not involve murdering your best friend. And we know that his magic is fundamentally different than other magic. And we know that he likes being the most powerful one. But it does make me wonder how many other things are going on as well. There are a couple other things that I wanted to mention. I want to talk about Wake just a little bit because I think Wake is really weird. They talk about this demagogue coming to power and how she's just incredibly charismatic. And it's possible that she was just an insanely charismatic demagogue. It feels like there's something special about her. And there certainly, at the end, ends up being something culty about her. All of these different, these fighter shuttles that have a portrait of Wake in them, which is very culty in itself.
I think this is more lictors doing weird shit.
You think that the lictors, like, interfaced with Wake and taught her things that she needed to know? Or you think, what?
I mean, I don't know. Like, this is just coming to mind, like, just right now. But I think that it's very clear that, like, there's conversations. I think this is me, like, reading ahead to, like, get ahead of things. And so maybe I'm mixing things up. And so maybe I should kind of wait. But it doesn't matter because we're in the spoiler section. But it's like Augustine basically yells at Mercy at some point and tells her, you are playing a dangerous game. You need to stop.
Yes. Yeah. And it's unclear what that is because you're like, well, I mean, we were all playing a dangerous game 19 years ago. But then you and I know that Mercy is still involved with BOE. She shows up on that planet that Camilla and Corona are on. Yeah.
So there's that. They have their suspicions about Cytherea being involved separately than them.
Yes. And it's unclear which direction that went. Did Cytherea reach out or did Blood of Eden get her on side? In which case, how?
Right. And it now seems because of the paying attention to the 5,000 versus 6,000 years ago thing, like it seems very clear, like it almost seems to me that Cassiopeia is the reason that BOE exists, right? That these people would exist because just of the thing, but the reason that they have this information at all is partially or this reason that that they're kind of going after the 9 houses, or the reason that they have memory of like what's going on, or the 10 billion, or all
coordinated
these things.
Purpose and coordinated understanding is directly related to Source Graham, which is Cassie.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I like that a lot. This is also, I'm just going to throw it out there because I know this is complete fucking bonkers nonsense, but in my heart of hearts, Wake is related to Hot Sauce. This may be because they both just have red hair and I've just decided that all red-haired people are related to one another, but I just thought it was a really fucking, like, she has that charisma and leadership skills. Maybe she's just the future Wake.
I love that.
I thought it was funny.
I do love that.
There's something about Wake that comes off as special to me, and it's partially that I'm frightened of her, so maybe it's just about her as a person, but there's something about it that has ancestral pre-resurrection vibes. It's very, very personal to her, and she, like, her hatred of Jod is like, it's just very personal, right? It's not about a political entity that is oppressing you. And I don't know where this comes from. Maybe it's just about focusing anger and that's just who she is as a person. But there's something about Wake that feels special. And I'm hoping that information about her will come out in Alecto the Ninth and that she hasn't actually just been murdered in Harrow.
Yeah, or at least, I mean, I think that she has just been murdered in Harrow, but at least we would have some more information about what made her so interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have.
Yeah, I think that's all I got too. So, Act 5. See you next time, my little nunlets. So it looks like we managed to kill this planet in record time. Not really. So we're headed back to the Mithreaeum. But we will be back next week to run through Harrow the Ninth Chapters 16, 17, and 18. So if you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontline5th.podbean.com. And you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. You can become a patron, and we do love our patrons, at patreon.com/frontline5th, and you can check out our merch store at our Redbubble store, linked in the show notes. Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontline5th@gmail.com. And with that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye!
Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Marie Adamako and starring Marie Adamako, Hannah Grunwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Marie Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. Sonia Grunwald designs our killer merch. Hot! Gorgeous! The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.